Hey there, Mel Abraham here from Thoughtpreneur Academy, and in this video we're going to talk about how do you create a unique personal brand so you can stand out. So stay tuned. Look, there have been plenty of experts in your space that come and go, and there will always be more. It's a sea of noise in every market, and it's just going to continue to get more and more saturated. Unfortunately, if you don't change now, you'll end up staying an invisible entrepreneur who remains unheard and never stands out. But here's the deal. With a few quick changes, that doesn't have to be you. You can shift, you can change, and you can stand out so you can make an impact and become the difference maker you want to be. Here's the thing. What we're really talking about is what will your personal brand look like and what kind of relationship will you have with your market? Distinction is the first pillar of the Legacy Maker formula, and distinction is a big part of your brand identity. But how unique should you be? How is it being seen by your market is the question. It's a tricky dance. Getting it wrong could completely ruin your entire content plan and actually your business. So here's what I want to do. I want to walk you through what I call the 5 brand relationships. Because when you start to understand what you have as a relationship with your market and what kind of brand you're creating, you realize how you got to elevate yourselves. Because although you're in a noisy market and others have come before you, no one has actually come to the topic with your experience, with your perspective, and your approach. And so what we need to do is build that brand identity in a way that it's one of the highest forms of positioning for you. So the question is, when we get through this, how are you allowing your market to see your soul? And what is the story that your market can relate to? So why don't we jump to the iPad? Let's talk about the 5 brand relationships. When we look at the 5 brand relationships, one of the first relationships that you can have with your marketplace, and when I talk about relationship, is the relationship that you have with your market and how they see you as a brand. And the first one is what I call adversative. I know, it's a long word, but think adversary. Think about adversary, because what we're talking about here is that you are in a marketplace where they actually don't even know you exist, which means that what happens if someone asks and says, hey, I heard about so-and-so, what do you think about me using them? Most likely what they're going to say is, I know nothing about them, but I know something about this other person. You should talk to this other person. So the point being is that if you're unknown, you actually have an adversarial kind of relationship with the marketplace. They're not promoting you, they're not talking about you, and they're actually referring people elsewhere because they have relationships with others. So we don't want an adversative type of a relationship with the marketplace from a brand standpoint. We need to start to elevate ourselves to the higher level of brand relationships. When we move out of that, when we start to transition out of that, what ends up happening is then the next stage is what we call attentive. This is when, and when your brand is at this level, what's happening now is that the marketplace is actually aware that you exist. So now all of a sudden people may say, you know what, I've heard of them. I haven't heard anything bad. I'm aware of them, but they don't have an experience with you. So now our primary focus is how do we develop an experience? How do we create the relationship or deepen that relationship where maybe they're going to start to spend a little more time with you, or they're going to digest some of your content. They're going to look at some of your free content that's out there. They're going to watch your posts. They might share a post. They might follow a post. They might look at it from that perspective. We need to look at it and say, how do I get my market's attention, per se, to make that happen? Then we move, when we go to the next stage of a brand relationship, stage 3 of the brand relationship, is that you actually become an alternative brand. And what I mean by that is that often, and this happens especially in the expert space, is that, for instance, in my case, I'm a consultant, a CPA, and I get referred to clients on an ongoing basis. And what a lot of times can happen is that they'll ask for a referral, and the person that's giving a referral will say, well, here's 3 names, check them out. So you become an alternative, a preference, a possibility to work with. So now you effectively get on that short list, if you will. So you're what I would call an alternative brand. So you've got an alternative brand relationship. That's a great place to be. It's a good place to start. It gets us out of the place where maybe they're aware or they're adversarial. But let's start moving. How do we move even further along that spectrum to make your relationship even stronger, your brand value even higher, and your ability to make a difference even better? So now we go to this 4th level of brand relationship, and that's where I call it assertive. When we talk about assertive, this is when people say, no, this is the person I work with. When they ask for a referral or anything, this is the person I work with. So people actually fight to work with you. Instead of being on the short list, you actually become the whole short list, a short list of 1. Because people will assertively say, no, this is the person I want to use. This is the person that I'm going to go to. We do this all the time. We go to the same doctors. We go to the same accountants. We create relationships with professionals and people that we know. Hairstylists, I mean, you name it. All these folks, we create relationships. And when someone asks, we assertively say, that's who we go to. Now, we want a bunch of people out there assertively talking about our brand. So do you have an assertive relationship with your marketplace? Because that becomes powerful. But what's more powerful than that is the 5th brand relationship. And that's when we go from assertive to active. What do I mean by active? Active is when your clients, your customers, and your marketplace become champions for you. Now, that absolutely exponentially leverages your marketing, your positioning, and everything else that you're doing in the expert space, because now you've got an army of champions that are voicing their opinion in a positive way about you, about the transformation you create, about the difference you make, about the changes you've made in their life, about the things that you've done for them. So the idea here is to ask ourselves, how do we elevate ourselves to a point where we create an army of champions that are actively out there telling people about what it is we do? So these are the 5 brand relationships that we need to look at, and you need to be honest and blunt with yourself and say, where am I in this? What kind of relationship do I have with my market? The cool thing is that when you understand that, then we can take the steps necessary to shift the brand relationships. And it is truly a relationship. This business of thought leadership, this business of being a difference maker is about, it's not transactional, it's relational. So how you create the relationship with your market and the kind of intimacy you have with them and connection with them is important to your brand. Like I said, your brand value, your brand recognition, your ability to make a difference and have an impact, which directly impacts your ability to make an income. So this is part of the first pillar of the Legacy Maker formula, and it's part of the whole idea of distinction and reach blended together. The challenge is that if you don't have distinction and you don't have the reach part taken care of, you're going to blend in with everyone else. You're going to be down in the lower levels of relationships that aren't going to serve you because of market saturation and because having a low-level brand relationship. And in fact, it might be happening to you right now and you don't even realize it. So here's what I want to do to try and help you out, is I'm doing a special free training where we're going to go deep dive into the Legacy Maker formula and the concepts of distinction and reach and prescription and how to get your message out there in a big way, how to make a difference, whether you're a course creator, whether you're a speaker, author, trainer, coach, consultant, you have wisdom to serve, to make a difference and solve people's problems. Let's get on that training together. Look for the link around this video, register for it, and let's make sure that we get your message out there so you can be the difference maker you want to be, have the impact you want to have, and the income you should get. Talk to you soon. Man, that's way up the top. It's like gone. We probably need to put a space in or something. Can we space it down? Like a return or two?